Hi, Guy. Welcome to Funnel Vision. Excited to have you on today for a conversation about, sales reps and AI and making sure, kind of keeping people focused and the highs and lows of all of that. So thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I've heard so many great things about you and your podcast. So thank you. Thank you for having me. And I think this topic is so timely. It comes up in almost every conversation I have with people these days. So thank you for prompting this.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. It is such a timely and important topic. So yeah, let's jump right in. And so one of the questions I wanted to ask you is like with all of the new sales tools, AI platforms and things out there, where do you see sales reps losing sight of the fundamentals in selling, like trust and listening and personal follow-ups and things like that?
Yeah, great question. I think so many reps get excited about these tools that AI are offering that, like you said, they lose sight and think that, automated voicemails or drafting their emails for them replaces them doing the hard work. And, these tools are as fantastic as they are. They're great for prep, but they should never replace the human side of it. Cause like you said, sales is about trust. It's about being curious, listening. And as great as AI can be, it doesn't do any of those things.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And we use AI and like the people that I talk to, like sales leaders all the time, like stress the importance of using AI as like a tool, but not to replace all of the basics. But people are really getting away from that and they just use it as like the whole thing. And, it's the kind of like their day to day. And it makes it challenging.
Yeah. And it's also, you can see at times, I just got a voicemail the other day and I answered and I thought it was a live person at first. And then I very quickly realized that it was AI generated and I immediately lost interest. There's no connection there.
Right, for sure. And why do you think then that so many reps today hide behind like emails or LinkedIn messages instead of picking up the phone and meeting in person? And what's the cost to that?
Um, that's kind of the golden question. And it really comes down to the human side of it. And it's fear. It's fear of rejection. It comes as basic as, remember when you're 15 years old and you ask that boy or girl out and they reject you. That fear is so real, even, as adults. And we over time have learned to protect ourselves from that. And it's much easier to hide behind an email or a LinkedIn post when that rejection isn't going to necessarily be right there in your ear. But at the same time, that rejection and the silence you typically get from emails and LinkedIn doesn't get you a no either. And it's those no's that are so vital in sales. I think the stat is in sales, it takes 9 no's to get to 1 yes. And so if you don't embrace those no's, you're never going to get to the yes. And so LinkedIn and email, they're not getting you the no's as fast.
Yeah, it's about getting those at bats, having those conversations. Like I know when I was a new sales rep or training sales reps, it's also about like every no gets you closer to that yes. Like you've got to like appreciate the no's. And you're right too. Like getting a no is easier and like makes more sense and you can process that better than a no answer or just like
Absolutely.
into the abyss because with that you're not able to build as much and understand like why aren't you getting an answer, like what is the objection, is it just that you've sent the emails that there's lack of all of these things, but getting that no is just a part of being a salesperson.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a no and I've thanked the person sincerely for that. And eventually that turns into a longer conversation and it becomes a yes.
Mm-hmm.
Just, it's that having the conversation sparks so much.
Yeah, yeah. And getting that no allows you to then saves you time in the fact that like you can then close the loop and then spend your time following up with other people that are, could be potential yeses, but also like appreciating that no and keeping that, keeping that relationship. But it saves you time versus like the constant follow-ups and just into the abyss of getting nothing. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to follow up 10 more times instead of,
Yeah.
getting the no.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. I can't tell you how many times I've trained salespeople and expressed to them that getting a no sometimes is even more valuable than a yes because it allows you to move forward.
That's right. That's right. So if you stripped like selling back to its core, what are some of the non-negotiable basics that every great salesperson still needs to master, no matter how advanced technology or AI gets?
This is one of my favorite questions I get asked, and in training sales reps, this is what I always harped on. It's really four things. It's the first one is showing up consistently. It's be yourself, be authentic. People see through a shtick. Put yourself in a car dealership, and that's a shtick. And it's tired. Three is being curious. You have to ask the questions. Nobody likes being sold to, but yet everybody loves being helped. And you can't help someone if you don't ask questions and listen, and be present and, be curious. That's such a big part. And then the fourth is you have to ask for the business. I've seen so many people do such a great presentation and then leave it all on the table and just say, okay, I'll talk to you later, assuming that the person knows why they're there, which they do, but you have to present it to them. And that could be, pivoting to, when would you like me to send this, or when can I expect the PO? Or if the conversation's not even there yet, it could be pivoting and asking for the next meeting. I've constantly told sales reps, don't leave that meeting without the next one already on the calendar, which in turn is, another form of asking for the business. So it's those four things.
Yeah, for sure. Those are also so important. Those are all things that we look for and we, kind of dive into when we're recruiting and talking to sales reps to make sure, to see that they have that. And it's so interesting. The reason I love sales so much and like being in this industry and recruiting people in this industry is because none of that is on a resume. That is the challenge and the fun part of recruiting for sales, because all of that it's in evaluating and looking at people and what they've done, how they've done it, but like what their mindset is and what their like natural, are they competitive? Are they hungry? These things are not on a piece of paper. They're not on a resume. And maybe they are like with metrics and things like that. But it's really, really important to find candidates that have those, curiosity, being, not being afraid of, fear of rejection, having the tenacity and competitiveness, hunger, drive, all things that are not on a resume, not able to just, check off, even using like all of the AI recruiting tools out there,
Right.
it's all in relationships and understanding. So it's really cool, how that comes into play with sales.
Yeah. And that almost brings up that fifth one that you've kind of touched on is perseverance. You have to have that. So I know you've interviewed and looked at so many resumes and what you do. What are a couple of the questions? I'm spinning this on you here real quick. Sorry. What are some of the questions that you found get to the root of that competitiveness or perseverance?
Yeah, great question. And if anyone's listening and interested, we actually have a list of questions of specifically for sales hunters that I'm happy to share, to give companies and people interviewing like great questions. But some of the keys there are asking behavioral questions like, what did you do? How did you do it? And looking for not only how they answer that question, but are they answering it as I did this or the team did this? And you want to know what they did themselves and also what they did as part of a team.
Okay.
Both are important, but kind of getting into like the in between of figuring out like what that looks like and what they've actually done and accomplished.
Right.
Another great question that I love is, tell me about a time you lost a big deal and like, how did you handle that? What did you do? What did you learn from it? Because there's not going to be, the worst answer that you can get is, I've never lost a deal. Because that's not true, right?
Right.
Some people try to say that, oh, that's never happened.
Right.
Okay, then you've never actually been in sales.
Yep.
Any good salesperson has lost a deal, and it's important to look at, why did they lose it? What did they learn from it? Did they, how long did they cry about it? And then how long, what did they do? You know?
Yeah. And to that point, the best ones get rejected the most.
Yep. Because they're taking the most swings at the bat.
Exactly.
So it's exactly. Yeah. So learning questions like that, digging into those behaviors. And again, I'm happy to share with you or anyone else, just, reach out with a message. We've got questions that we share with our clients and people all the time for great questions. Also, based on the type of sales position that you're looking for, there's different questions that you would ask for a hunter versus farmer type of sales position, somebody that's doing business development versus somebody that's, closing leads that they're getting, things like that. So that's good.
Right on. I didn't even mean to, but I teed you up really well there.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that. So like for AI, it can make your prospecting faster. It can make your research faster. But how can companies, or what are some tips that companies could use to train reps to use it as a tool without letting it replace like the human element of sales and relationship building?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you just have to get in front of it as a leader, and talk about it. I think so many people don't want to talk about the fact that they use, chat or anything like that as prep things. It's almost like nobody talks about that big elephant in the room. But we need to be open and honest about it. And at the same time, emphasize how much the reason you as the leader have this team with you is because you believe in them as people. And these tools should make you more human and give you more ability and more time to be more human with your clients. So use these tools more as prep, admin, things like that. And the more you talk about the value that they bring as a person and a human, the more they're going to step into that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's true. People like are embarrassed, or they talk about like, oh, AI is great and you should use it, but then nobody wants to like admit to using it. But I agree, like it should be used as a tool, just as like, spoiler alert, I used ChatGPT to help me put together the questions for this podcast today.
Right.
Which is great. That helped me. It helped me, think about good questions, get those prompts out there. But it doesn't replace the conversation that we're having and the relationship and the human aspect of it. So, similarly, it's a tool.
It gives you such a great foundation, but I think people also make the mistake of thinking it's going to save them a ton of time. I use it regularly, but I use it as the foundation to then craft it in my own way. And learn from, okay, this part's good. I don't like that. This doesn't sound like me at all. And if it's all about connection and trust, it has to sound like you. So use it as a tool to get you started, but then forget that you started there and take what that's given you and make it your own. That's key.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. You cannot just, use it as everything that you said. I agree with you. Use it as that tool, but it's got to be in your tone. It's got to be, it's got to then come from you.
Yeah.
And in that, like, what are some additional things that sales leaders can do to make sure that their teams are staying connected to clients on a personal level, especially like when metrics and different automation can take away the human side? Or there's certain like metrics, on our team, for example, like we talk about, how many phone calls you're making, how many conversations you're having versus like, you still have to send out those emails and things like that. But, counting the metrics for the human and relationship things you're doing as well.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two things as the leader you need to do. And the first one is maybe the most important, is you need to model the behavior. If you want your team reaching out to people and connecting with people, they need to see you doing the same. And you can't hide behind your CRM and expect your team to be doing things that you're not willing to do yourself. That's my own personal belief in leadership. But then, like you said, it's measuring the things that matter. We have so much data at our fingertips these days, and as an outgrow advisor, this is one of the things that we talk about so much. And you've said it a couple of times today. It's about taking the swings. We have so much data knowing that, we like to say we know the batting averages already. When you ask certain questions or when you're pivoting to the sale, when you're asking for a referral, we have the data, what the success rates of those are. And I think most important, it's tracking the phone calls. It's tracking, did you send a handwritten thank you card? That's huge. Nobody gets those anymore. It's trying to authentically connect with your clients, especially ones you haven't talked to in a while. Regenerate that. Those are the things that you should be tracking. If you're tracking those types of efforts, the wins and outcomes going to come. So why not track what's really important?
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings me kind of, you touched a little bit on this, but if you have a sales team that wants to recommit to like real relationship building this quarter and going into 2026, like what is a takeaway? What's one thing that they can start doing immediately that would create the biggest impact, in your opinion?
There's a lot of things. This is exactly what Outgrow does. This is what we help business owners do. But I think if you're going to do one thing and do this on your own and take away from this today, is get your team to commit to making 5 proactive phone calls every day. Do it for 3 months. And that proactive call, just calling to check in, see how things are going. It's been a while. I wanted to make sure, what do you have going on there that we might be able to help you with? Or what are you doing with our competitors that we might be able to help you with? Asking any of those questions once you've established the connection again, that will do wonders. And, it's easy for, one person to do for a week. But to get your whole team to do it every day for 3 months and then it become routine to do it forever, that's what really moves the needle. So it's just, get them to make those 5 phone calls every day. And I think it was Mark Twain. If it wasn't, Mark Twain gets credit for tons of quotes that I don't think he really said. If you have to eat a frog, do it first thing in the morning. If you have to eat 2, eat the biggest one first. So make those calls first thing in the morning before you get your day started.
Yeah.
It'll probably take you, 10, 15 minutes of your day. That's it.
Yeah. And it's simple, right? It sounds simple. It's nothing complicated. Everybody has a phone. But it's not easy.
Exactly.
It's a simple thing, but it's not easy. And I think what you said too is it's something too that you've got to build the habit of it. May be difficult the first couple calls or first couple days, but as you build the habit of it, it's just something that you do and that your team does.
Yeah.
The difference that could make and compound with all of those conversations. And of course, picking up the phone versus like an email. It's, even how we started this conversation before we started recording. Oh, my kids are doing this. My kids are doing this. Just getting to know someone, that's where you're building that relationship.
Yeah. And you have to change the mindset. You have, as a quote salesperson, you can't be a salesperson. You need to be a helping person. You change that mindset. Like I said, nobody likes being sold, but everyone loves being helped. And if you just start with the connection and then ask authentic, sincere questions about what's going on with them and their business, you're going to find opportunities to help them. Yeah. And that resonates with people.
Yeah, totally. And it's not only, maybe there's opportunity for you to work with them and help them, but also to be a resource or make an introduction or, kind of use your network. And the more they can lean on that and see that like, oh yeah, Elana's here to help, Guy's here to help, or I can go to them for a question that's not just of, the specific product or service that they sell, because I know that they are going to, be there to help.
Yeah.
That's where those relationships deepen. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Guy, tell us a little bit about you now. What do you do? Where can people find you? What's your background? And tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about Outgrow.
Well, thank you. I, gosh, this is a big loaded question. I got my start out of school. I went to DC and thought I was going to save the world in politics. Got that out of my system really quick. Got cynical. Working in restaurants, I caught the wine bug at an early age. So when I moved back to the Seattle area where I'm from, got into the wine business, ended up having my own company for 17 plus years, as an importer and distributor. Had a great time and it was awesome up until COVID, and that kind of kicked our butts, and made some hard decisions and decided to move out to the Chicago area where our grandkids are. And in the process, I was introduced to Alex Goldfein, the founder of Outgrow. And when he started telling me his philosophy on sales, it really resonated. And I immediately turned on the offensive and convinced him to let me become one of the advisors that he's growing. And we now help business owners grow their revenue by doing all the personal connections and proactive work that we've been talking about. And I absolutely love it. And as a previous business owner, I feel obligated to help others in that room and in that arena solve a lot of their problems just by reaching out to people and being authentic more often. So that's what I'm doing now. And my entire career has been great, but I can honestly tell you I've never been more excited about what I'm doing than I am now. It's pretty exciting stuff. Sitting in a room and helping businesses build the confidence in helping people. And LinkedIn is probably the best way to get a hold of me. My contact information is right there front and center because I am reachable. Does that answer your question? Anything else
Yeah,
I can add
that's
to that?
perfect. I appreciate that. And when we post this, we'll link you and tag you so everybody can find where you are on LinkedIn. I appreciate this has been a great conversation. And yeah, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.